2 Samuel chapter number 2. Y'all remember what we talked about last week? No? Saul is dead, remember? Saul is dead and David is now king. The tragic end of Saul, David's lamentation over Saul. And it is a powerful story, and I appreciate all you guys telling me how much you're enjoying just walking through it. This is a section of scripture that I've preached on bits and pieces of stories, but I've never taken verse by verse and gone through and just looked at it all with you. But I kind of do that. I've done it obviously on my own, and I'm sure you have, just reading through the story. But it's good to talk it through and kind of make sure you understand it and just and talk out all these events. It's a fascinating story. I think it'd make a great movie, don't you? The story of David. And so as we get to chapter number 3, we covered chapter 2 last week, and that's where we ended. We're going to pick up in chapter number 3, verse number 1 in just a second. But where things stand, Saul has been killed. He's been killed by the Philistines. He and his sons, and one of those being Jonathan, David's best friend. Their bodies were placed on the wall at Beth-shan. The men of Jabesh Gilead had come and rescued the bodies of Saul and his sons and buried them in Jabesh under a tree. And David then asked the Lord if he should go up to Judah, and God tells him yes. And so he leaves the Ziklag, where he had been kind of hanging out in the Philistine territory, and he leaves Ziklag and he makes his way to Hebron, a place called Hebron. And there, the tribe of Judah anoints David as king. And he will serve as king over Judah, the king of Judah, for 7.5 years of his what will be a 40-year total reign as king. And so that's where things stand now. Where we closed out was we were telling you about David and just the fascinating manner of what he is. David is a complicated individual. And, just thinking about him, I see a lot of people who mirror David. They don't have, there's a lot that hasn't been right in their life, but they have an overwhelming love for the Lord, and the Lord has used their life and been with them and stayed faithful to them and blessed them, even though they're not perfect. And that's how David was. David always was acknowledging of the Lord. He was just in love with the Lord. He acknowledged him. He included him in everything, even when he didn't get things right. And sometimes he had to be reprimanded. Sometimes he stepped out of line. You're going to see, as we venture into 2 Samuel, you're going to see some of David's flaws, okay? His flaws with his children, his flaws in handling situations, his flaws sexually. You're going to see how he, failed, but he never lost sight of the Lord, and the Lord remained faithful to him and brought him through those times. And if you'll look, you can see a lot of David maybe in yourself. So we encourage you to do that. So we closed out 2 Samuel 2, so join me in reading verse number 1 of chapter 3, 2 Samuel 3, okay? Now there was long war between the house of Saul and the house of David. But David waxed stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul waxed weaker and weaker. Now, if you'll remember last week, so the final story of 2 Samuel chapter 2 was Saul gets killed. Okay, he has a son, Saul does, by the name of, anybody remember Saul's son's name? What is it? Nope, not Abner. That was his commander, Ishbosheth. How could you not remember that? People, are you not listening? Right? Ishbosheth, right? It just flows off the tongue, right? Ishbosheth. And so Ishbosheth becomes king. See, I don't know about you, but I had Old Testament survey in Bible college, right? And New Testament survey and all this kind of stuff. And they told me that there was Saul, and then proceeding, after Saul, there was King David. Well, over Israel, that's not true. There was King Saul, then there was King Ishbosheth, then there was David, okay? So they just so don't take people's word Okay, even if they're a college professor, for the way the story unfolds, read it for yourself. Saul had a son by the name of Ishbosheth, okay? And Saul had a commander over his army named Abner. So Abner is, if you read the story, Abner is just more of a man than Ishbosheth. He's smarter, he's wiser, he's a military guy. He's very much a leader. Okay, well, he orchestrates for Ishbosheth to become king in the room or in the stead of his father Saul. Well, David becomes king over Judah. David has a guy leading his army by the name of Joab, right? So Joab is the leader of David's army, Abner over Saul's, now Ishbosheth's army. Ishbosheth's army, right? And so remember the standoff last week where they took the 12 guys and just let them kill each other? Because, there's just animosity between the house of David and the house of Saul. And that's what verse number 1 of chapter 3 tells us, that David and his house, the house of David, grew stronger and stronger. The house of Saul grew weaker and weaker. And there's constant tension between the two of them. Now, we get a little peek into what's going on in David's life, verse number 2. And unto David were sons born in Hebron. Remember, David is not, okay, so think about this. There is no Jerusalem yet, okay? There's no Jerusalem in Israel. It's there, but it is called Jerusalem, but it is a Jebusite fortress. It's not even occupied by Israeli people, okay? Not yet, but almost. And you'll see maybe tonight if we get that far. So David lives in Hebron. He is the king over Judah. Ishbosheth is the king over the other 10 tribes, which they call Israel, okay? So he has sons born while he's king in Hebron over Judah, and his firstborn was Amnon. Remember that because there's a story we're going to talk about Amnon. Amnon was born of Ahinoam the Jezreelitess. Remember at this point in David's life, remember he used to be married to Michal, Saul's daughter. Y'all remember that? Then Saul got mad at him, took Michal away and gave her to some other dude. Remember that, right? So then he marries Ahinoam, and he marries a lady by the name of Abigail, and that was Nabal's wife. Nabal died, he took Abigail, okay? So he has Amnon of Ahinoam, verse 3, and his second is Kileab of Abigail, the wife of Nabal the Carmelite, and the third, Absalom, the son of Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur. So you see here, David is accumulating sons, but he's also accumulating wives. So now he has Abigail, he has Ahinoam, and he has Maacah. And notice these sons' names. Amnon, remember that? Kileab and Absalom, verse 4. And the fourth, Adonijah, the son of Haggith. And the fifth, Shephatiah, the son of Abital, and the sixth was Ithream by Eglah, David's wife. These were born to David in Hebron. So if you count them up, David had 6 sons while he was ruling over Judah, okay? And from the city of Hebron. And it came to pass, while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, that Abner made himself strong for the house of Saul. So the chief guy, Ishbosheth, may be king, but the way I read the story, Abner's really in charge, okay? So you kind of have a puppet king in Ishbosheth, and maybe that's why people just dismiss him as a king of Israel. But Abner makes himself strong, the Bible says. So David is raising a family in Hebron, and then I want you to see this, what happens with Abner and Ishbosheth, verse 7. And Saul had a concubine whose name was Rizpah. A concubine is not quite a wife, but it is somebody that I guess is a girlfriend is how I don't know, okay? Anyway, yeah, they're discouraged, okay? Concubine, whose name was, they cause all kinds of drama, okay? And Saul had a concubine whose name was Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah. And Ishbosheth said to Abner, wherefore hast thou gone in unto my father's concubine? So basically, Ishbosheth the king accuses his right-hand man Abner of sleeping with his father's girlfriend, his deceased father's girlfriend that he had around, okay? Then was Abner very wroth for the words of Ishbosheth and said, am I a dog's head, which against Judah do show kindness this day unto the house of Saul thy father, to his brethren and to his friends, and have not delivered thee into the hand of David, that thou chargest me today with a fault concerning this woman. So basically, Abner takes offense because he accuses him of sleeping with this concubine of Saul's. And so Abner gets upset and says, listen here, you little twerp, okay? I could have you killed, and I don't like you accusing me of doing stuff, right? So there's tension there, okay? So do God to Abner, and more also, except as the Lord hath sworn to David, even so I do to him, to translate the kingdom from the house of Saul and to set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah from Dan even to Beersheba. So Abner gets so mad at Ishbosheth for accusing him of being with his concubine of his father's that he says, look, okay, here's what's going to happen. Okay, David is going to be king not only over Judah, but over all from Dan to Beersheba. In other words, all 12 tribes, he's going to be king over it. I don't like you accusing me. Basically, his allegiance shifts, okay, and he kind of makes up his mind that he is not going to be on team Ishbosheth anymore, okay? Verse 11, you have Ishbosheth's reaction, and he could not answer Abner a word again because he feared him. Okay, so that tells you right there that Abner is in charge because Ishbosheth is afraid of him. Verse 12, and Abner sent messengers to David on his behalf. Remember, David is in Hebron, ruling over Judah. Abner is over the armies and the right-hand man of Ishbosheth over the other 10 tribes. Well, Abner sends messengers to David on his behalf saying, whose is the land? Saying also, make thy league with me, and behold, my hand shall be with thee to bring about all Israel unto thee. So he sends messengers to David and says, look, let's make a deal, okay? I am powerful to Ishbosheth, okay? I will deliver you all of Israel, and you'll be king not only over a tribe or two, like Judah and Benjamin, but you'll be king over all 10 tribes. David says, verse 13, and he said, well, I will make a league with thee, but one thing I require of thee, that is, thou shalt not see my face, except thou first bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when thou comest to see my face. So David says, look, I'll make a deal with you to become king over all of it. You can hand the northern kingdoms to me, but here's the deal, okay? Michal, my ex-wife that was taken from me and given to somebody else, I want her back. Okay, so you ain't going to talk to me, you ain't going to see my face unless you bring Michal with you. So let's see what happens, okay? So, and David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Saul's son, saying, deliver me my wife Michal, which I espoused to me for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. Y'all remember that story? Remember it? Okay, it's like, I mean, I wouldn't even say it's the craziest part, but Saul was trying to kill David, and he said, to whoever brings me 100 Philistine foreskins, yes, foreskins, okay, I will give my daughter, okay? So David not only kills 100, he kills 200, pays double for her, right? And she becomes his wife. This is crazy. You can't make this stuff up, okay? So then he sends, okay, so Saul's dead, all that's, water under the bridge, and now he wants him back. So Ishbosheth, Saul's son, sends, gets a message from David, says, I want my Michal back, okay? And Ishbosheth sent and took her from her husband, even from Phaltiel, the son of Laish. So here's this guy named Phaltiel, right? He's sitting on the couch, knock on the door, all right? And they come take Michal, and they give her back to David. And it's kind of sad because her husband went with her along, weeping behind her to Bahurim. It is sad, but it's kind of funny, okay? I'm just saying, okay? It's kind of fun. I'm sorry. Then said Abner unto him, go, return. And he returned. So I don't know. Phaltiel's like following along. He's crying, and Abner like, go. And he's like, okay. So it's just, okay. It's a soap opera. And Abner had communicated with the elders of Israel, saying, ye sought for David in times past to be king over you. Now then do it. For the Lord hath spoken of David, saying, by the hand of my servant David, I will save my people Israel out of the hand of the Philistines and out of the hand of all their enemies. Okay? So Abner basically tells the elders of Israel, who are the kind of the rulers over under the king, that, you know what, David, it's been prophesied that David's going to be the king over everything. So we've talked about this and talked about it even when Saul was king. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. Okay. So, and Abner also spake in the ears of Benjamin. Did I finish 18? By the hand of thy servant David, I will save my people Israel out of the hand of the Philistines and out of the hand of all their enemies. Now, verse 19. And Abner also spake in the ears of Benjamin. That's the tribe of Benjamin. And Abner went also to speak in the ears of David. Now, the reason he speaks in the ears of Benjamin is because Saul was from the tribe of Benjamin. Y'all following? So Saul was the king. He was killed. Ishbosheth, who's Saul's son, is from the tribe of Benjamin. So if you want to transfer and make someone from the tribe of Judah king, you got to appease the Benjamites and get their support. So it's politics is what Abner's doing behind the scenes. And spoke in the ears of David in Hebron, all that seemed good to Israel and all that seemed good to the whole house of Benjamin. So Abner came to David to Hebron, and 20 men with him. And David made Abner and the men that were with him a feast. And Abner said unto David, I will arise and go, and will gather all Israel unto my lord the king, that they may make a league with thee, and that thou mayest reign over all that thine heart desireth. And David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. So Abner comes with 20 men, talks to David. They get the plan. Abner's going to go take care of all the politics in Israel, and Israel, all the elders of Israel, are going to throw their support behind David, becoming the new king, and we're going to get rid of Ishbosheth, and David's going to take over as king over everybody. And that's how the meeting is left, and everything ends in peace. But watch this, okay? Verse number 22, and behold, the servants of David and Joab came from pursuing a troop and brought in a great spoil with them. But Abner was not with David in Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he was gone in peace. When Joab and all the host that was with him were come, they told Joab, saying, Abner the son of Ner came to the king, and he hath sent him away, and he is gone in peace. Now let's refresh your memory here, okay? So remember, Abner worked for Saul, right? He was his lead military guy, his right arm. Well, David's right arm is Joab. Joab is off fighting battles. Now, the reason the Bible mentions this here is because Abner and David had a meeting. Joab is out fighting a battle with soldiers. He comes back after the meeting's over and Abner's left, and they tell Joab that Abner has been here. Now, why would they tell Joab that? They tell Joab that because, remember last week, Joab had two brothers, right? And Abner had killed one of his brothers. When Israel and Judah were fighting after the death of Saul, they got into it, and Joab's brother Asahel, who was a really fast runner, chased after Abner, and Abner, who is a pretty rough dude and a tough dude, told him, he like hollered back, like, stop following me. You know, I'm going to give you a chance. Go kill somebody else because you don't want none of this. And he kept doing it. He said, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. And he killed him. Okay. Well, Joab gets really mad, so he hates Abner. So now Abner is making a deal with David. Joab doesn't like it. You following? Okay. Then Joab came to the king and said, what hast thou done? Behold, Abner came unto thee. Why is it that thou hast sent him away, and he is quite gone? Thou knowest, Abner the son of Ner, that he came to deceive thee, and to know thy going out and thy coming in, and to know all that thou doest. Okay, so he goes to David and he's like, why in the world would you take a meeting with that guy? You can't trust him. You know that he's here just as a spy. He works for Ishbosheth. You know you can't trust him. Why in the world would you do that? So he kind of calls out David. And when Joab was come out from David, he sent messengers after Abner, which brought him again from the well of Sirah, but David knew it not. So after Joab goes and confronts David, why in the world are you talking to Abner? Abner had left. Joab comes out of that meeting, sends some men to go get Abner and bring him back, okay? So that's as it sets it up. So, and when Abner, verse 27, was returned to Hebron, so he brings him back, Joab does. David knows nothing about this. Joab took him aside in the gate to speak with him quietly. Hey, Abner, come here, I need to talk to you. So he pulls him aside in the gate of the city and smote him there under the fifth rib, stabs him in the rib. Same way, if you go back and read, that his brother was killed, okay? So, pulls him aside, smote him under the fifth rib, that he died for the blood of Asahel, his brother. And afterward, when David heard it, he said, So here's David's reaction. I and my kingdom are guiltless before the Lord forever from the blood of Abner, the son of Ner. Let it rest on the head of Joab. Let the blood of Abner rest on the head of Joab and on all his father's house, and let not there fail from the house of Joab one that hath an issue, or that is a leper, or that leaneth on a staff, or that falleth on the sword, or that lacketh bread. So David basically curses Joab's family. He's like, I don't want your family to ever not have heartache. Somebody being a leper, somebody starving to death, or somebody taking their own life, or something. I mean, basically got really upset with Joab. So Joab and Abishai, that's his other brother, his brothers slew Abner because he had slain their brother Asahel at Gibeon in the battle. That's back when Saul died, right after Saul died. And David said to Joab and to all the people that were with him, rend your clothes and gird you with sackcloth and mourn before Abner. And King David himself followed the bier. Now, so David, his response, you know how it is with, okay, like Israel attacks Iran. Everybody wants to know what Trump thinks about it, right? They want a statement on it, right? You want to know where you come down on it. Well, think of it like that. Joab kills Abner. Now everybody is looking at David to see, hey, how's he going to respond to this, right? Because Abner is from the other team, right? But we're trying to bring a united Israel back. So David makes a statement. He says, I want all Israel to tear your clothes and mourn, rend your clothes and mourn this great man Abner. And King David himself followed the bier. Verse 22, and they buried Abner in Hebron. Notice he's buried in Hebron where David is king. So David probably extended him a great positive sign there by allowing him to be buried there and not shipping him back where he was from. And the king lifted up his voice and wept at the grave of Abner, and all the people wept. And the king lamented over Abner and said, died Abner as a fool dieth. Thy hands were not bound, nor thy feet put into fetters. As a man falleth before wicked men, so fellest thou. And all the people wept again over him. So it's almost like David is saying, like, you died like a fool. You shouldn't have, you weren't shackled and chained and killed on battlefield or anything like that. You shouldn't have listened to Joab's men to bring you back. And it just kind of laments him. Verse 35, and when all the people came to cause David to eat meat while it was yet day, David swears, saying, so do God to me, and more also if I taste bread or aught else till the sun be down. So David would not eat. He fasted and he mourned Abner, and all the people took notice of it, and it pleased them, as whatsoever the king did pleased all the people. For all the people and all Israel understood that day that it was not of the king to slay Abner, the son of Ner. So David's reaction in mourning for Abner, burying him in Hebron, refusing to eat while he was mourning, all Israel looks, and what do? They admire David. He is about to become their king. You see what I'm saying? So he had to put the right face on it. And he honestly seems to have admired Abner and probably was friends with him and, mourned him legitimately. For all the people and all Israel understood that day that it was not of the king to slay Abner, the son of Ner. And the king said unto his servants, know ye not that there is a prince and a great man fallen this day in Israel? And I am this day weak, though anointed king. And these men, the sons of Zeruiah, talking about Joab and Abishai, be too hard for me. The Lord shall reward the doer of evil according to his wickedness. Okay, so that's the story of Abner's murder and David's response to it. And then we'll see something that happens here in this short little chapter, chapter number 4. And when Saul's son, who's Saul's son? Ishbosheth, y'all remember now, don't you, right? Easy, just rolls off the tongue. And when Saul's son heard that Abner was dead in Hebron, his hands were feeble. Ishbosheth's not real brave, okay? He just is not. So Ishbosheth hears that they killed Abner, okay? His hands were feeble and all the Israelites were troubled. And Saul's son had 2 men that were captains of bands. The name of the one was Baanah, and the name of the other, Rechab, the sons of Ramon, a Beerothite of the children of Benjamin. For Beeroth also was reckoned to Benjamin. And the Beerothites fled to Gideon and were sojourners there unto this day. So there's these 2 guys, Baanah and Rechab, okay, who work for Ishbosheth. They're his captains. And Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son that was lame of his feet. He was 5 years old when the tidings came of Saul and Jonathan out of Jezreel. And his nurse took him up and fled, and it came to pass, as she made haste to flee, that he fell and he became lame, and his name was Mephibosheth. Now, if it wasn't complicated already, there's Ishbosheth and there's Mephibosheth, okay? You got it? Ishbosheth is the king now. Mephibosheth is the grandson of Saul. So why is it telling this? And you'll see here in a second. So I want you to remember this. So Abner's dead, right? Ishbosheth king. He's got these two guys who are captains for him, okay? And he's scared now that Abner's been killed. Then the Bible mentions Saul's grandson, Jonathan's son, Mephibosheth, who was 5 years old when Saul was killed and his dad were killed. And they ran because they had been defeated and killed. And he was dropped, and some kind of fall happened and messed up his legs. And he was lame for the rest of his life. Mephibosheth, remember him because he plays a role later on, and it's a beautiful picture of salvation, I think. And I want you to remember Mephibosheth. So we're going to mention some of these guys, and we won't hear about them a lot till later, but remember Mephibosheth. And the sons of Ramon, a Beerothite, Rechab and Baanah, went and came about the heat of the day to the house of Ishbosheth. So here's these two captains that worked for Ishbosheth. They show up in the middle of the day to the king's house. Ishbosheth's the king, who lay on a bed at noon. So he's asleep in the bed at noon. And they came thither into the midst of the house as though they would have fetched wheat, right? Because that's what everybody does at noon, right? I'm going to go fetch some wheat. Didn't you do that today, right? Okay. So they went and fetched wheat, and they smote him under the fifth rib. What is it with the fifth rib, right? You just keep hearing this over and over. But they go to Ishbosheth. He's asleep at noon in his house, and two of his captains come and assassinate him. And Rechab and Baanah, his brother, escaped. For when they came into the house, he lay on his bed in his bedchamber, and they smote him and slew him, watch this, and beheaded him, and took his head and gat them away through the plain all night, okay? So they go in, kill him, behead him, and run for it. And they brought the head of Ishbosheth unto David to Hebron. Now, if you are familiar with David at this point, is this a good idea or a bad idea? Okay? Because when remember the guy a couple weeks ago? I mean, it's been more than a couple weeks since this happened, but it's a couple weeks since we talked about it. When Saul was killed and the guy, he concocted a story and thought he had, impressed David, that, he brought Saul's jewelry and stuff like that, and David killed him. I mean, he thought, like, you made up, he had him killed. Well, watch this. So these two guys that assassinated Ishbosheth bring the head of Ishbosheth unto David to Hebron, and said to the king, behold, the head of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, thine enemy, which sought thy life. And the Lord hath avenged my lord the king this day of Saul and of his seed. So here's two guys that come up with a good idea. They blame it on God again, right? Look, see, God delivered this into your hand. David does not like it. He does not like people doing things in an unethical manner. He does not like people going after the anointed line of Saul. Even though God took the kingdom away from Saul, he is very protective. Remember, he made that promise to his best friend, Jonathan, that his family would be protected and he'd watch over him when he became king. He does not like that, okay? And verse number 9, and David answered Rechab and Baanah, his brother, sons of Ramon the Beerothite, and said unto them, as the Lord liveth, who hath redeemed my soul out of all adversity, one told me, saying, behold, Saul is dead. He goes, a little while back, somebody came to me and told me Saul is dead, thinking to have brought good tidings. He thought that was good news, okay? I took hold of him and slew him in Ziklag, who thought that I would have given him a reward for his tidings. There was a guy one time that came and told me about Saul's death, thinking I'm going to pay him and give him a reward, and I killed him in Ziklag. How much more when wicked men have slain a righteous person in his own house upon his bed? Shall I not therefore now require his blood of your hand and take you away from the earth? And David commanded his young men, and they slew them and cut off their hands and their feet and hanged them up over the pool in Hebron. But they took the head of Ishbosheth and buried it in the sepulcher of Abner in Hebron. Okay, so he kills those two guys and makes a public spectacle of him. David had that tough side that you didn't want to cross, and these two guys crossed it. And usually it happened with being disrespectful to the house of Saul. He was very protective of that. Then came all the tribes of Israel to David unto Hebron. and spake, saying, Behold, we are thy bone and thy flesh. Also in time past, when Saul was king over us, thou wast he that led us out and brought us in Israel. And the Lord said to thee, Thou shalt feed my people Israel, and thou shalt be a captain over Israel. Remember when this is week 7 of this story, verse by verse, through the life of David. Remember when David was working for Saul and he placed him over the leadership of his army and things like that. And Saul got the credit, but David did all the work. And the Bible says that he went in and out among the people. And basically that meant that he had to respect the people. Well, the people remember how David was. It's been years under the leadership of Saul, but they remember how David was as a young man, probably 10 or 12 years before, okay? So here's what they do. So all the elders of Israel came to the king, to Hebron, and King David made a league with them in Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. So at this point, David has been king over Judah for about 7.5 years. So the last few chapters have taken several years to unfold, but David in chapter 5, verse number 3 is anointed king, not only over Judah and Benjamin, the southern tribes, but over all 12 tribes of Israel, and he becomes king over all 12 of them. Notice this, David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron, he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months, and in Jerusalem, he reigned 30 and 3 years over all Israel and Judah. Okay, so 40-year reign, first 7.5 in Hebron, then 33 years over all of Israel. And I know if you're doing quick math, 7.5 plus 33 is only 39.5, and that'll come back to us because when we meet David's son Solomon, we'll find out about that 6-month transition period between David and Solomon there. So go on, verse number 6. And the king and his men went to Jerusalem unto the Jebusites. Now, notice this. This is not the first time Jerusalem is mentioned in the Bible, but I want you to take note of this. Because when we think of Jerusalem, we think of what's going on in Israel right now, capital of Israel, all that kind of stuff. Jerusalem was not always the capital of Israel, okay? This is the story of when it becomes a Israelite possession. There were people in the land, and in this Jebusites, okay? The inhabitants of the land, which spake unto David, saying, Except thou take away the blind and the lame, thou shalt not come in hither, thinking David cannot come in hither. Nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion. Notice that word Zion. The same is the city of David. And David said it on that day, Whoso getteth up to the gutter and smiteth the Jebusites, and the lame and the blind that are hated of David's soul, he shall be chief and captain. Wherefore they said, The blind and the lame shall not come into the house. Okay, so here's what happens. David goes to this place. The Jebusites live and they occupy this area called Jerusalem. Okay, and they tell David basically you can't come in, and David says I am coming in, and he leads in and he takes by force this place called Jerusalem or Zion, Z-I-O-N, okay? Now, if you read in the Psalms over and over, Jerusalem, Zion, Mount Zion, all these are used as places where God chose to put his name. This is the dwelling place of God. So even to this day, let me show you, where's that verse? I just read it. It says, Verse 7, Nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion. The same is the city of David. I want you to notice that in your Bible, the city of David. Now, if you were to go to Jerusalem tonight, there is a big city of Jerusalem, okay? That is many miles wide, just hundreds of thousands of people living in it, all kinds of things like that. But inside that city, there is this place we're talking about, okay? And it's a 12-acre old city that used to be called Jerusalem, that the Bible refers to as Zion, and it becomes known as the city of David. Now, if you pull up even a modern map, you will see, go pull up Jerusalem. If you go right south of the Temple Mount, you will see a little etch around a little 12-acre tract, and it is still called to this day the city of David. Ask me how I know. I've been lost under the city of David, okay? We got in a drainage ditch, and we thought we were taking the road that we were supposed to go to come back out up at the Temple Mountain, or actually the hotel. And we didn't. Okay, so we're in like a Roman drainage ditch. Okay, and I don't want to know what drained. Okay, I do not want to know. Right, but we're there, and I mean we are under there, and the thing is, we were walking, and then it just kind of kept getting smaller, and so you're just like getting. I mean, we were like scrunched down by the time it was, and pretty sure it was my fault because you cannot. I don't know what it is. We were in Jerusalem, and I was following. Apple Maps, you can't do that. Okay, like it led, like the hotel's right over there, and like we ended up way over here, like in Philistine territory. No, yeah, I think we were in Ziklag. No, but I mean we got lost under there. But there's a place called the City of David. Okay, that is where it's right south of the Temple Mount. That is where Jesus was taken the night of his arrest to Caiaphas's house. Caiaphas's house is there. All the bigwigs, okay, used to live in that area. And in fact, you're about to see David built himself a big house in that area and ruled from that little 12-acre spot. Now the modern city of Jerusalem is much larger than that, but there is that 12-acre spot. The Pool of Siloam is at the bottom end of it. They've recently discovered it and making excavation on it as of a couple years ago, and it's just breathtaking what they're doing. Okay, next verse number 8. So David, and David said on that day, I already read that, didn't I? 9. So David dwelt in the fort and called it the City of David. Okay. So that little 12-acre fort or compound, and David built round about from Milo and inward. And David went on and grew great, and the Lord God of hosts was with him. And Hiram, king of Tyre, sent messengers to David and cedar trees and carpenters and masons, and they built David a house. So Tyre is, if you look at a map, Israel's here, Jerusalem's here, and Tyre's up here, like in Lebanon, in that area up north. And they sent down cedar trees, carpenters, masons, and they built David a house. And David perceived that the Lord had established him king over Israel, and that he had exalted his kingdom for his people Israel's sake. Okay? So David perceives the Lord's with him. So what did he do? And David took him more concubines and wives out of Jerusalem after he was come from Hebron. And there were yet sons and daughters born to David, okay? So remember, he had 6 boys by 6 different women in Hebron during the first 7.5 years, right? Okay, of his kingdom. Now he moves, okay, he's king over all Israel, and he lives in Jerusalem and expands his family. And these be the names of those that were born unto him in Jerusalem. Shammua of Shobab, Shammua, right? And Shobab and Nathan and Solomon, remember that name? Ibhar also, and Elishua, and Nepheg, and Japhiah, and Elishama, and Eliada, and Eliphat, right? You ever listen to Jerry Clower? The family, WL and L, Odell, Udell, Burnell. You remember how he did that? That's kind of what I think of right there. And Claude, Clovis, and Eugene. That's how it was, yeah. But when the Philistines, how many know who Jerry Clower is? How many have no clue who Jerry Clower is? Half of you don't. Go, you got to. He was an old Mississippi country boy that told funny, clean country stories. That sucked the chocolate off the peanut and put it back in the bowl. I told that a couple weeks. That's a Jerry Clower joke, okay? So my papa loved him. He just the old country coon hunting boy that told funny stories. He used to come here to Hiwassee all the time and would be at the fairgrounds and tell stories, okay? All right. Verse number 17, but when the Philistines heard that they had anointed David king over Israel, all the Philistines came up to seek David. And David heard of it and went down to the hold. The Philistines also came and spread themselves in the valley of Rephaim. And David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I go up to the Philistines? Wilt thou deliver them into mine hand? And the Lord said unto David, go up, for I will doubtless deliver the Philistines into thine hand. And David came to Baal Perazim, and David smote them there and said, the Lord hath broken forth upon mine enemies before me as the breach of waters. Therefore he called the name of that place Baal Perazim. So Philistines get into it after he becomes king. He goes, the Lord tells him to go, you're going to win. He goes and defeats the Philistines. And there they left their images, and David and his men burned them. And the Philistines came up yet again and spread themselves in the valley of Rephaim. And when David inquired of the Lord, he said, thou shalt not go up, but fetch a compass behind them and come upon them over against the mulberry trees. And let it be when thou hearest the sound of a going in the tops of the mulberry trees, that then thou shalt bestir thyself, for then shall the Lord go out before thee to smite the host of the Philistines. And David did so as the Lord had commanded him, and he smote the Philistines from Geba until thou come to Gezer. So David gets into a few scrapes with the Philistines, and God helps him. God's with him. He delivers them into their hand. One time, God tells him, don't go. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go around behind them. There's going to be probably a big wind blow, and I'm going to use that wind. I'm going to go before you and deliver them into your hand. So God was with David, just blessing him left and right. And, one thing I have to point out here is that it says that when he defeats the Philistines, that their images they left behind and David destroyed them. Okay. God, you can go through, okay, after Saul, okay. So Saul was first king. We know Ishbosheth and then David now. After David will be his son Solomon for 40 years. That's what we call the United Kingdom time in Israel. Because after the death of Solomon, not to get way far ahead, the kingdom divides into a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom again, okay? And there's about 20 kings on one side and about 19 kings on the other side, all the way until the Assyrians take over the northern side and Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians in the time of Daniel take over the southern in about 586 BC. But there's all these kings, and you can almost track because it'll say this king did evil in the eyes of the Lord. And there was always pagan worship associated with it. So the kings that were blessed by God were the ones that ridded the land of the pagan idols and worship. That's what David did. How can David, a man of war, a man of bloodshed, a man of many women and many children and just tremendous flaws in his life. How can God be so faithful to him? He was faithful to God in so many ways. And one of the ways was Israel belonged to the Lord, and there was no other God but Israel. And God seemed to have blessed that if you study the history of Israel in its entirety, because there are kings like Ahab and all them that are coming, they would marry pagan princesses and bring in all these gods and have all this kind of stuff going on up north in Israel in the tribe of Dan. They had Caesarea Philippi and all the pagan. I mean, it was as one guy said, the Disneyland of pagan worship. I mean, it was all kinds of gods, and it was right there in Israel. And God got really upset and judged the tribe of Dan for allowing that. But in the time of David, David did not allow that, and he would destroy anything that tried to infiltrate. And I think God had a healthy respect for that. Verse number 1, chapter 6, and again, David gathered together all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. And David arose and went with all the people that were with him from Baal of Judah to bring up from thence the ark of God, whose name is called by the name of the Lord of hosts that dwelleth between the cherubims. Now, we're going to jump back in here. We're going to assume that you know a couple things, okay? Now, several hundred years before David, there was a guy named Moses, remember? He led Israel out of Egypt. God gave Moses instructions in the book the book of Leviticus and Deuteronomy and those first 5 books of the Bible on establishing worship, what the Jewish religion was supposed to be like. As a part of that, he told him to build a tent of meeting or a tabernacle of the congregation. And it was a portable thing that as they traveled through the wilderness and wandered on their way to the promised land, they set it up everywhere they went. That was their place of worship, okay? Inside that, in the back, there was a room called the Holy of Holies. And inside the Holy of Holies, there was a piece of furniture with staves run through it. The priest carried it, and it was called the Ark of the Covenant. Everybody knows, you've heard about the Ark of the Covenant, right? We don't know where it's at. okay? Or maybe they do know where it's at. I kind of have a funny feeling that they may know where it's at, waiting for the right time to pull it out, okay? With the institution of a third temple and prophetically and all that kind of stuff, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But the ark kind of disappears from history around the time of the prophet Jeremiah, 200 or 300 years after David, okay? But at this time, the ark is in the possession of Israelites, but there is no temple, okay? Well, first of all, we just read there was even no Jerusalem at that time. There's now a Jerusalem, Zion, the city of David, but David sins and he wants to bring the ark from where it's held and he wants to bring it up to the city of David, right? That's what he wants to do. Well, here's the thing. God is pretty particular when he gave the instruction to Moses of how you do this thing, how the tabernacle is to be, how the rooms are to be, what furniture is in it. This is what you do. This is who transports the ark. This is how you transport the ark, okay? David gets a little out over his skis on this, okay? And let's read what happens. Verse number 3, David has a good desire. I want the ark here because the ark symbolized the presence of God. Where do I want the presence of God? I want it in Jerusalem, the city of David, right? I want God here. Verse number 3, and they set the ark of God upon a new cart and brought it out of the house of Abinadab that was in Gibeah and Uzzah and Ohio, the sons of Abinadab drave the new cart. So there's these two guys, Uzzah and Ahio. They're driving this cart, transporting the Ark of the Covenant. Now, if you just read that verse, you're like, oh, okay, well, big deal. It is a big deal, okay? Because that's not how God said to carry it. Priests were supposed to carry it. Remember when they crossed the Jordan River and Joshua, then the water parted and Joshua, led the people across? The ark went before them. The people followed behind, right? They went across and it was a defined way you transport the ark. Not let's build a wagon, throw it on there, get some mules and just drive the thing to Jerusalem. That's not how you do it, okay? Well, I think God is being pretty patient here, but then something happens. And they brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was at Gibeah, accompanying the ark of God, and Ahio went before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel played before the Lord on all manner of instruments made of fir wood, even on harps and on psalteries and on timbrels and on cornets and on cymbals. So Uzzah and Ahio are leading this cart that has the ark. David and all the people are behind playing musical instruments, okay? Celebrating, worshiping. David has the best of intentions. And when they came to Nachon's threshing floor, Uzzah, remember one of the guys with the cart, put forth his hand to the ark of God and took hold of it, for the oxen shook it. So the oxen shook and the ark kind of wobbled. Uzzah stabilizes the ark, okay? Watch this. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God smote him there for his error, and there he died by the ark of God. Now that's pretty brutal, isn't it? Pretty harsh, okay? God, you did not mess around with the ark. You had to do it exactly how God said it, okay? Now, they tell me, if you do a little research on this, that basically, even in the margin of my Bible, it says, and this is kind of a well-accepted thing, you have an intent to bring the ark, okay? That's a good intent, but you got to do it in the right way. Okay, so David had a good intent, but what he did was he did it in a wrong way, and he did it. A lot of historical, archaeological people will tell you that he moved the ark kind of how the Philistines would move the ark, and not how God said to move the ark. He kind of followed Philistine tradition and put it on there, and so maybe that's it. We don't know, but God did not like it, and then when somebody touched it, it was over the line. Uzzah got killed. Now watch this though. And David was displeased because the Lord had made a breach upon Uzzah. David got upset with God because he killed Uzzah, okay? Now, God doesn't hate David, but God made a decision, and what happened? David got mad at him. You ever, this is awkward. Have you ever had God do something that you don't agree with? You ever read something in the Bible and you're like, whoa, that's kind of tough. I don't know if I agree with that. Okay. Now, first of all, you have to remind yourself that you're a human, okay? And God's God, And don't take this the wrong way, but I don't think God cares if you agree with it, right? All the time, right? Because God, his ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. But David did get upset with God. And he called the name of the place Perez Uzzah to this day. And David was afraid of the Lord that day. Notice that. David got upset with God. He got displeased with the Lord, and he got fearful of him. And said, how shall the ark of the Lord come to me? So David starts having second thoughts whether he even wants the ark to come to Jerusalem now, because, man, if you can't even touch it, it's going to kill people, right? I don't even want it there. So watch what he does. So David would not remove the ark of the Lord unto him into the city of David. But David carried it aside into the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. And the ark of the Lord continued in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 months. So he said, look, I don't even want to bring it to the city of David now because of Uzzah's death. Got kind of upset, and I'm afraid of it. So he says, to this guy, Obed-Edom, hey, you want the ark? So they take the ark to Obed-Edom's dwelling place, and watch what happens. And the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and all his household, because wherever the presence of the Lord is, the blessing of the Lord follows. David wanted the presence of the Lord, but he did it in the wrong way, okay? So it didn't bring the blessing, and it brought fear, and it brought displeasure in David, because God was very particular in how this had to be done. And it was told King David, saying, the Lord hath blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that pertaineth unto him because of the ark of God. So David went and brought up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom into the city of David with gladness. I like that, because you know as well as I do, that's what you would do too. It's like, hey, I was going to bring the ark to my house, but we put it over there at Obed's house. Now he's blessed. I want to be blessed. Go get it from Obed's house and bring it over to our house. Why? Because we want to be blessed. Forget Obed, right? That's what David did. Selfish, yeah, but come on. So he goes and gets it, and it was so that when that bare the ark of the Lord had gone 6 paces, he sacrificed oxen and fatlings. Okay, now 6 paces, a pace is 5 feet. So listen to this. They remember Uzzah touching the ark, getting killed. So the people transporting it this time do it the right way, and every 30 feet, they make a sacrifice to God. They're like, God, we good? God, right? Wouldn't you? I would, right? And that probably come from David. He's like, just walk about 30 feet, boys, and let's kill another lamb, right? Let's make sure God's good, right? We don't want nobody else dying. Notice verse 14, and David danced before the Lord with all his might, right? All you people that don't believe in dancing, there you go. David danced, right? And David was girded with a linen ephod. So David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting, with the sound of the trumpet. And as the ark of the Lord came into the city of David, so here, I want to set this. Okay, so they're carrying it into the city of David that used to be occupied by the Jebusites. It's what we know of now as Jerusalem, the original part of Jerusalem, the original 12 acres. They're carrying it into the city, okay? And Michal, Saul's daughter, okay, is up in a window. Watch this. Michal, Saul's daughter, looked through a window and saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart. Okay, who knows the amount of drama that's going on behind the scenes here, right? First of all, she used to be married to Foul-Teal. Remember him? The cryy guy, right? And she used to be married to David, got taken, given to Foul-Teal, then got taken from Foul-Teal, given back to David, right? And then she looks down at David, and he's all dancing before the Lord, and she gets mad at him. And here's what happens. And they brought in the ark of the Lord and set it in its place. And in the midst of the tabernacle that David had pitched for it. So here's the tabernacle, and they put the ark in its place. And David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And as soon as David had made an end of offering burnt offerings and peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord of hosts. And he dealt, so here's what he does. So he makes a blessing over the people. He's excited the ark of the Lord's here, and he gives everybody something. Watch this. And he dealt among all the people, even among the whole multitude of Israel, as well to the women as men, to every one a cake of bread and a good piece of flesh and a flagon of wine. So all the people departed, everyone to his house. So everybody got a cake and some meat and some wine to celebrate. I mean, everybody, okay? Men and women, everybody got this from David because the ark, the presence of the Lord, is in the city of David, Jerusalem. This is very, very important in the history of Israel. Very important to understand this story. Jerusalem, the city of David. Okay, the city of David, very, very important that you understand and file all this in your memory bank as this story unfolds, okay? Then David returned to bless his household. So David goes home. And guess who meets him? And Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said, how glorious was the king of Israel today, right? Basically like, oh, you look real good today, right? Who uncovered himself today in the eyes of the handmaids of his servants, as one of the vain fellows shamelessly uncovereth himself. So basically, she's like, you made a fool out of yourself because you're out there singing and dancing, and uncovered himself. I don't know what he was wearing, but he had a ephod on, and he was worshiping the Lord, okay? And she is at home. As soon as he walks through the door, fusses at him, right? And David said unto Michal, it was before the Lord which chose, watch this though, watch this, I love this. It was before the Lord which chose me before thy father. Think about that zinger, right? Yeah. I did that to God. You know, the same God that picked me over your dad, right? I mean, that's what he's saying, right? So, and before all his house to appoint me ruler over the people of the Lord, over Israel. Therefore will I play before the Lord. Basically, God chose me, didn't choose your dad. I'll worship before the Lord, and he ain't gonna tell me what to do. That's what David said. And I will yet be more vile than thus, and will be base in mine own sight. He said, if you think that's bad, I'm gonna worship more, and I'm gonna do it more. So basically, typical just fuss between David and Michal. And he says, and of the maidservants which thou hast spoken of them shall I be had in honor. So they're not going to despise me. They're going to honor me because I'm doing it to the Lord. Now, I guess the Lord agreed, because the Bible says, verse 23, therefore Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no child unto the day of her death, because of the way that she responded to David's worship there, okay? So lots of drama, lots going on. What we are going to get into next week is chapter number 7. David has a desire, okay? And his desire is, he looks around at his life. He now has the city of David, the Jebusite fortress. He has a nice house there. Hiram, king of Tyre, sent him all this material down. He's got all this nice house, and he looks around and realizes that God dwells in a tent, and I dwell in this nice house. I want to build God a house. So now you start the birthplace of what would later become the temple in Jerusalem. There's been 2 temples. There's no temple there presently, but it is built. You're going to see that God puts it in the heart of David to build the temple, even though he does not eventually allow him to do it, okay? He will not allow David to build it for God's reasons, and we'll talk about them. But David's seed, David's son, we know Solomon builds the first temple. But we're going to get into that story, and it's a wonderful story. You're going to see where the first temple was built and just the grandeur of it. And this is a fascinating story. I hope you're enjoying it. I love this. I remember as a little boy, my mom and dad told me I needed to read the Bible, and so I always made my way to 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel because there's all kind of war and tough guys and all that kind of stuff. I love this, and I hope that you're enjoying the narrative as we walk through David, a man after God's own heart as well. We're going to stop there for the night, a couple of minutes early. Thank you for being here tonight. Lord, go with us and help us. Thank you for this evening. Thank you for David, Lord. We thank you for his faithfulness to you. We thank you for his worship of you. We thank you, Lord, for all that he teaches us, the principles that we learn. And Lord, a lot of this is historical, it's narrative, but God, may we think about these stories and how David put you first in his life. He was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but Lord, he was a man after your own heart. We want to be like him. We want to learn from his good, and we want to learn from his bad things that he had in his life and help us to be better. Thank you for the Bible as we can study it tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.